Welcome to Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, in-depth City Council meeting. Cindy, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Lampy.
Present.
Councilmember Osborne.
Present.
Councilmember Gordon.
Present.
Councilmember Brockert.
Present.
Councilmember Gendrich.
Present.
Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Conard.
Present.
6 present, 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and we are going to skip from the mayor because I have nothing to share tonight. So next is going to get into discussion items. So the first item is a presentation of the Ports of Eastern Iowa Authority. And with these discussion items, we're going to give 15 minutes per section, and we'll be timed by Cindy, and she'll give you an update when we have 1 minute left, and then there'll be time for questions afterwards, okay? Welcome.
This is cool. I'll switch slides here, I think. Can I do that to the back up? Just a second here. I think that just fine. Maybe. How do I do that? Oh, got it. Don't start as 15 minutes yet. This is the full-blown one. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm Bob Sinkler. I'm the executive director of the Corn Belt Ports. I was here a couple of years ago. I know it was a long time ago. It was like 2019, I guess. So it's more than a couple of years ago. I gave you an update on what we were planning on doing on just a kind of a vision of the Corn Belt Ports Initiative. And I'm just going to give you an update now on where we are 5 years later. I live in Bettendorf, Iowa. I've done this as a volunteer on the Iowa side pretty much since 2015, but we just want to get our ports on the map. And I've got with me Dr. Anshu Singh. She lives in Bettendorf. Her husband works for John Deere there in the Quad Cities. She recently got her PhD in large river ecosystems, but prior to that, she grew up in India, went to India's leading ag university. It was modeled after Iowa State, is that right? The University of Illinois and Kansas State had some influence there. Her father was a professor there. After she graduated, she went to work for the equivalent of the Chicago Board of Trade in India. And so she's the smartest person on her team. And then I've got our director of operations, is from Chillicothe, Illinois, graduated from the University of Illinois, got his master's degree from Kansas State. He went into the Army and was in the Army Special Forces, spent 20 years there, and he's just a great director of operations. He couldn't be here tonight, or he would have clearly liked to. So I'm going to run through some slides real quick. We kind of see Muscatine as the original Corn Belt port, and we actually use that in our presentations quite frequently. But I'll give you a little bit of history about what's happened over the last 5 years. But we really want our Corn Belt ports to protect the integrity of our supply chain, and then the Corn Belt ports are the regional ports inside the lock and dam system. This morning, Dr. Singh and I briefed the Iowa Transportation Commission. They met in Clinton at one of their quarterly meetings. I just want to let you know what we asked them. Dr. Singh gave this presentation, but one of the organizations that we talked about was the Iowa Association of Port Authorities, and we just requested that the Iowa Department of Transportation recognize the new Iowa Ports Association, which was created in 2025 this year, like the other states that recognize their ports association. So Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Minnesota have had ports associations for decades. We just wanted to create an association so we could partner with and work with our DOT and the other ports associations in our larger region. And then this morning I gave a presentation on the Ports of Eastern Iowa Authority and asked the commission to just recognize the Ports of Eastern Iowa Authority, and then also just ask them to take a look at supporting the creation of the ports of Western Iowa. We think if we have the east coast of Iowa's got a regional port, we probably ought to do the same for the west coast of Iowa. But anyway, just into some of the details. We live in the most biologically productive place on the planet. This is from a Smithsonian Institute article. The four yellow ovals there are the 4 Corn Belt port regions that we created and got federally recognized. They're nationally and globally significant and a key part of our supply chain. And some of you may remember this, but what really kicked the Corn Belt ports off was an article written by David Murray. He's a reporter with Waterways Journal. He did an article, it was published on the 1st of August 2019, talking about the potential of having a regional port in this region. Wonderful article. And then after the article was came out, I took the article to the Quad City Chamber of Commerce and said, hey, we really ought to think about establishing a port here. So that's kind of what got things kicked off. This is a map of all the little black dots here are ports, federally recognized ports. This is what the map looked like before we started in 2020. And as you can see, the map that was used by federal agencies and organizations to make decisions in DC didn't even have our ports recognized. And it's kind of crazy when we ship 100 million tons of freight out of here, a larger region a year. We should have been on the map. So resourcing decisions were being made, and we were literally a big black hole. And there was a rural injustice, we felt. There was a port in St. Louis, one in St. Paul, one in Chicago, but the tonnage really comes out of the rural areas, not the big urban areas. And so it was just misrepresenting things when the big metro areas over 2.5 million people, had the ports, and we didn't. And we didn't have ports, but farmers don't drive their combines to barges. There's infrastructure between the combine and the field and the barges, the county roads, the bridges, the terminal themselves where the grain is loaded, and that was not represented appropriately. And this is just another map of that was used by the federal government at the time. All the little blue polygons are ports in the U.S., and as you can see, it was just one big black hole where we were at. And we ship 100 million tons of freight out of the region. So between 2020 and 2022, everything in the green rectangle was added. So, and that's a pretty significant, port, regional ports. So that's helped. We've helped. I don't want to go into much detail about this, but we've helped attract over $2 billion worth of infrastructure investment since the ports were created. Most of it through the bipartisan infrastructure law, the IIJA funding. But recently, within that framework, we just created the ports of eastern Iowa. The 6 counties in eastern Iowa came together. From Dubuque to Louisa County came together, formed a 6-county port region in eastern Iowa, and that's good for Iowa in a lot of ways. But this is just another example. On the left, the USDA produces a grain transportation report every week. And this is what the map looked like on the left. There were no ports designated at all in our region, and now we've got the 4 Corn Belt ports designated on their weekly transportation report. That's important to get this level of visibility at the national level. And this is just something else we're working on. This is the 2025 American Society of Civil Engineers Infrastructure Report Card. This is all the stuff that gets graded in Iowa, and ports were missing. We want to get that. We're working now to get our ports on the ASCE report card. It's just hard to make the case for or argue for funding for infrastructure if we don't have an ASCE report card or a grade. And these are the other Upper Mississippi River Basin report cards. So Illinois is on the left, and Missouri is to the right of that, and the far right is Wisconsin, and Minnesota is there at the bottom. But all of those have ports. Their ports are recognized. Ours were not. So we're working that. So I'm just giving you an update on some of the things we're working on. Our ports are multimodal, and they are, sustainability is the very foundation. Just because we want to make sure our ports are both environmentally and economically sustainable way into the future. This is where the 4 Corn Belt port regions align with the USDA's corn production map by county. As you can see, it's, again, this is just a logical place to recognize ports just because of the commodities that are shipped through, on our waterways. And this is the soybean production map. Looks very similar. But in 2020, for the first time in history, we got our first 3 Corn Belt ports ranked together. The ports of eastern Iowa and western Illinois was the 56th largest port in the United States. Number 55, with the same amount of tonnage, basically, was the Port of Miami. So that's nationally significant. So we just want to continue to maintain that level of visibility. Skip those. And then we just formed an Iowa Ports Association. Very similar story. The 5 states in the upper Mississippi River Basin had port associations that actually promoted ports and were an advocate for ports, port infrastructure investment. Iowa didn't have one, so in 2025 we created one. Now all the 5 states in the upper Mississippi River Basin have a ports association, and they can help influence state policy, federal policy, work closely or hand in hand with the Department of Transportation in the state of Iowa to advance some things. I'm just going to use this as it's one example of many, but there's a lot of very similar examples. The Maritime Administration, all those all those colored dots, and then the left in the box on the left are grants that are available for ports. And from 2010 to 2022, all the dots there are the Port Infrastructure Development Program grants and others that went to ports in the U.S. And there were really none in our region from 2010 to 2022. So for 12 years, we got a 0. And Dubuque is shown there as receiving an infrastructure grant or infra grant, but the money was returned because they didn't have a port to implement it. So they did the paperwork, got the grant award, they couldn't implement it, had to give the money back. So we have never had a successful, during that time frame, never had a successful grant in the region. But that changed after the Corn Belt ports were created. There were 5, 2 on the Illinois River, number 1 and number 2, and then A, B, and C are on the Mississippi River. Those are the first time ever Port Infrastructure Development Program grants, and that's just one of the grant programs by the Maritime Administration. Some big success stories here. LaGrange of Missouri, Northeast Missouri, got an $11 million grant to make some improvement. Number 1 there is the largest Port Infrastructure Development Program grant in the history of the state of Illinois. Went to a little small town of Hennepin, Illinois, about less than 1,000 people. So it's gotten more money. It did better than St. Louis or Chicago ever did. So it was a big win from their perspective. It went to support a soybean processing plant that's there, MarkWest Energy. But anyway, so we've that's brought in $63 million. That's just one example of many. And as you can see, there's never been a Port Infrastructure Development Program grant ever in eastern Iowa. So we're trying to make that happen this cycle. There's still a lot of money available. On the 9th of April, President Trump signed an executive order called Restoring America's Maritime Dominance, and there's some opportunities in there to bring more money back into our region. And that's it. I'm just going to stop there unless there are any questions. Anyone?
Any questions, council?
Nope, thank you for all the work on that. I know we've been trying for quite a while here to get that overpass over the rail tracks. We're working with CPKC on that, and it's another opportunity to reach out to this group to assist with financing because of the transfers to the river that we do across that bridge to help that activity, and some other projects we've looked at too that we've discussed with the port group too. So excited to learn more and work with you.
Yeah, and there's opportunities out there. Iowa especially has got a kind of an attitude, hey, we'll do it ourselves. We don't need federal dollars. And most of the terminals are privately owned and operated, but when the private terminals team up with a public entity, there's the money. You can still bring money in, and it can improve a private terminals facilities or public infrastructure that supports that. And that was what we did with Hennepin. The small town there was the public entity partner, and Mark West Energy was a soybean processing plant. They're going to get $38 million of improvements to their facility, and that's the model we would like to implement in eastern Iowa. And there's opportunities. It may take us a while to get there, but we want to do that. The good thing is, and we just met with staffers from Senator Grassley's office and Ernst's office today. It's real easy for them once we get some applications in. It's real easy for them once we get some applications in, for them to call the Maritime Administration and say, when's the last time you've ever given a port infrastructure development program to eastern Iowa? The answer is going to be never. Yeah. So the time is right, or there's a good time now to bring some investment in the region.
So I know back when, I think it was 2020, early 2024, 2023 that we talked over there, when we talked to you guys, and you mentioned that in order to get some federal dollars, we have to have recognition with number one, the federal government, the regional, and that, which would be by state, would be one of those that would be probably regionally recognized. Yeah. And then state, county, city. Yeah. How are we doing with getting recognized throughout?
I think we're in good shape now. I think we have public entities now that meet their criteria for a applicant from the as defined by the Maritime Administration. So I think we can go. We should be able to apply for. If we're creative about it, we can figure out a way to make anything work. So we want to do that. And I know. I was talking to Randy Carmichael today. He just bought some property down, and that would be a perfect opportunity. It's a piece of property trying to be repurposed from coal to fertilizer. That would be a perfect example, of how you could, take advantage of a port infrastructure development program grant to make some improvements. So, and there are other opportunities out there too.
Through that, what the chamber's been working on, and also, Jeff Sorensen on the County Board of Supervisors has been very active in this also. Appreciate all his effort and what the county board's helped us out.
He's been great. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Did you say?
Yes, I find this all very exciting since I worked in transportation when I was at Monsanto, now Bayer, for several years. So, and this would have saved a ton of money.
Yep.
And a lot of headaches for distribution clerks if we just had a way to get our product to market without having to jump through a bunch of hoops and wait on somebody who may or may not show up.
Yeah, so the good thing about the grants that we're working is that, it supports railroad and also, water, riverfront infrastructure. So, and there's interest in having more investment in the rural U.S., and we want Eastern Iowa to be the most competitive out there when it comes to competing for rural dollars or dollars that are fenced for rural areas.
Well, the last thing I want to share is what Councilmember Connor says. For, I'd say, years, we've been getting council members, elected officials get contacted regarding Dick Drake Drive area and the opportunity to have an overpass, working with CPKC and with you guys. There's some funding to continue commerce to go over when the train stops. Hey, it can stop. We can just go over top of it now. So it does shut down. And then when vehicles stop, semi-stop, there's a mission that goes in the air. I know we've talked about this about a year ago, but I think there's opportunity also there.
So we've been successful. We just want to share best business practices. We got a half a dozen port infrastructure development program grants that just went in this last cycle in the larger region. We just want to keep that coming. The Trump administration doubled the amount of money in that program. So we just want to take advantage of it when we can. So.
Any other questions, Council? Well, thank you so much for your time. Great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And next, we have a presentation on recent changes to state code relating to single-family residential zoning, including the impact these changes will have and the amendments they necessitate in city code. Welcome, Mr. Fangman.
We time in this one too?
Absolutely.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to try and kind of make this simple and quick. The intent of this presentation is to kind of go over with City Council and the community as a whole the impact that some recent changes at the state legislative level will have on single-family zoning in Muscatine, as in all Iowa communities. Both nationally and within the city of Muscatine, you saw zoning kind of emerge in the early 1900s, largely with the intent of setting aside very specific areas in the city for single-family use only. Starting, in 1957, we kind of transitioned to a more comprehensive citywide all-use zoning scheme, which kind of follows national trends. Then over the past 70 years, we've had numerous changes to our zoning ordinance, but one thing that has remained relatively unchanged is our single-family zoning districts, which restrict pretty much the only use allowed in that is site-built single-family homes, with a few exceptions for things like churches and schools, and by and large, more than 50% of the community is placed in this zoning district. This, once again, kind of mirrors what you pretty much see in any other community. However, the argument's been successfully made to the state legislature that dedicating so much of the available land exclusively to site-built single-family homes has become a barrier to the constructing certain housing options needed by many Iowans. For this reason, the state legislature has taken a numerous number of recent actions that specifically limit how restrictive cities and counties can be when zoning for single-family residential, specifically when it comes to accessory dwelling units, group homes, and manufactured homes. And I'm going to kind of quickly go over the legislative changes on these and how it impacts city code. Probably the most substantial one, it relates to accessory dwelling units, which state code defines as an attached or detached residential unit not exceeding 1,000 square feet or 50% of the primary residence, and this would be in addition to an already established dwelling unit on a parcel. As of July 1st of this year, cities must permit at least one ADU on the same lot as a single-family home, even if the underlying zoning prohibits multiple dwelling units. The new state code goes further and imposes a requirement that the cities may not be more restrictive on how they regulate these ADUs in terms of these specific development standards, such as maximum building heights, minimum setbacks, lot sizes, lot coverages, etc. Further restrictions imposed on how we can regulate them is cities cannot adopt aesthetic standards requiring ADUs to match a primary residence exterior design, roof pitch, or finish material. We also can't restrict an ADU from being a manufactured home. Cities may not permit ADUs from being used as a rental unit. We may not require new or separate utility lines. And one I do find will be probably fairly significant is cities cannot require that additional off-street parking be required beyond that which is required for a single-family residence. So that's probably going to be the most problematic of all of this for us in some of our areas where there's a lack of on-street and off-street parking. However, state code's very black and white about this. Kind of moving on to the issue of group homes, which I know this is something on a number of these that we've been contacted on as a number of these have been opened up on the community. City code since the 70s, when it first kind of picked up this issue, has treated and regulated group homes very different than single-family residences and other residences. Once again, the state legislature has stepped in and it now requires that for most types of group homes, that for zoning purposes, they be treated exactly the same as single-family homes. These types of protected group homes, which is going to be a pretty broad swath, would be residential care facility, which is a group home for 3 to 5 people with intellectual, mental disabilities or brain injuries. Child foster care facilities with less than 6 children. Elder group homes with 3 to 5 residents, or maternity group homes. So with these 4 different categories, there's very few group homes that would fall outside the bounds of these, and we have to treat them identically to single-family homes. Right now, that's kind of a problem with the way our zoning ordinance is set up, because in 14 out of 15 of our zoning districts which allow for some form of residential use, we have restrictions on group homes that would be unenforceable, that are unenforceable under state code, as they either outright prohibit group homes, impose unlawful restrictions, require a conditional use permit from the zoning board of adjustment, or would require a group home to be included within a council-approved development plan. Those are all things we can no longer enforce. And moving on to the issue of manufactured and mobile homes. Right now, city code has a very old definition of mobile home, which is kind of all-encompassing. It's up there on the screen. State code has split it into two definitions, one being mobile home, which is similar to what we have, and then manufactured home, which would be a structure built post-1976 under, a federal design, federal construction guidelines, was what they define as a manufactured home. Right now, under city code as written, both manufactured and mobile homes, because we define them the same, are limited to placement only within an approved mobile home park, or if council's otherwise to approve them as part of an approved development plan. Once again, this now runs afoul with state legislation, which now says anything that qualifies as a manufactured home, which is anything that meets HUD guidelines and is manufactured post-1976, which at this point is pretty much everything, we have to allow them any place we would allow a site-built single-family home. Are any restrictions on pre-1976 mobile homes, that's still enforceable? State code does require that the placement of these manufactured homes still comply with setbacks and minimum lot standards, same as a site-built single-family home on the lot. We can require they be installed on a permanent foundation, and they are required to be assessed and taxed as a site-built dwelling. They also impose some additional regulations so that cities couldn't essentially impose a de facto ban on them by either requiring a foundation that's incompatible with the manufactured mobile homes, or by requiring a standard that any dwelling unit be more than 24 feet wide, or have a roof pitch that a manufactured home wouldn't have, so long as a manufactured home is still meeting the HUD guidelines. One thing that state codes do give cities the option to do is that when they're installed outside a manufactured home part, we can impose requirements to ensure the visual compatibility of the permanent foundation system with residential, the surroundings, so basically require the skirting. Currently, city code doesn't have a requirement like that because we just don't allow them outside those areas. Kind of moving on. So currently, the city does not and cannot enforce, any provisions of our code that are conflict with state code. Kind of why I'm coming to you tonight is kind of want to kick off the process of getting those sections removed. And really, this is for several reasons. One, it's good practice. It's also for the sake of transparency and good customer service. The community finds it pretty confusing when we have to explain why we're not enforcing our rules. And there's also, I'm sure, a number of people that look, that's what the rule's written, and they don't even bother to ask. So it's good practice for our code to reflect what's actually enforceable. So the other kind of point coming you tonight before we start the formal adoption process is if there's kind of anything else in terms of broad stroke single family zoning that you would like us to look at, this probably wouldn't be a bad time to kick that over to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so kind of moving forward is the next step is I'll be bringing forward the specific language to make. There's dozens of changes, individual changes that will be made throughout code. The P&Z will review those, and then we'll bring it back to you, first starting with a public hearing on it, and then you'll all move forward with the adoption on it. But I do think I should highlight again the fact that even as we do this, we are not enforcing things that we can't. So most of these changes are in effect now. So I take any questions you all might have.
Any questions, Council? Councilmember Gordon, then Osborne.
Yeah, just real quick on the changes that we may want to enact. Do we have like a list of frequently asked requests that the P&Z should review, to sort of modernize the code outside of what we have to do already? I don't need an answer right now, but it might be something
Yeah,
that we consider is what are some of those frequent requests that we haven't gone forward with or considered? and this is probably the time to review them.
Right, and I think we'll look at, that'd be something put to the P and Z, but I think also part of tonight was kind of to ping you as council, because you receive a lot of community feedback. If there's anything that you've been hearing that you would like to at least be part of the discussion and consideration.
I wish I knew some of the rules or why they didn't enforce some things on the group homes a little more, because I'm aware of one very closely. And safety would be one issue in some of those homes and things like that, but it sounds like it's carte blanche. It's like you're a single-family home. It's
I mean, if there
unfortunate.
are specific issues, I think if we could look to see what we would still might have the authority to do. I mean, something like it's pretty fine point, but I think if we know, if you all let us know what you want more be specific looked in, we'll absolutely do that, and either we'll come up with something we can do or explain why that there's nothing we can do on that particular issue.
I mean, we want to be fair, but still, there are some of them that need a little more safety concerns, I think, so just, I might be interested in being on that conversation a little, so.
Osborne, Gendrich, Lampy.
One thing that comes up, particularly where we have our more dense residential areas, the parking, of course, and you highlighted that as a concern. But one of the things I'd like to recommend is that we look at, and this has come up in these discussions quite a bit, like a bedroom requirement. Like for every 2 bedrooms, we have to have one off-site parking space. For every, let's say there's 3, then that would round up to 2 spaces. 5 would round up to 3 spaces, that kind of thinking.
So so right now, what the parking requirement would be is for everything that's above 2 bedrooms, it's 2 parking spaces. For 2 bedrooms, it's 1.5. For 1 bedroom studio, it's 1.
Say that again? 2 is,
One bedroom is 1 parking spot. 2 bedrooms is at least 1.5. 2 and above would be 2 spaces.
okay. And so I'm just recommending that
I just wanted to let
we
you know what we
revisit
have.
that one a little bit. Currently, we require a off-site parking space for every bedroom in a bed and breakfast, for example. And then, you've got 1 to 2 parking spaces is basically required for any size place. I'm just saying we gotta, if you've got a 5-bedroom, maybe 3 spaces. If you got a 7-bedroom, maybe 4 spaces. Basically, like I said, 2 bedrooms for each spot, rounded up. I think that I've thought about this quite a bit over the years since these tend to come to my attention quite a bit around the the parking and all that kind of stuff in the more dense areas of our community. And I can see some pros, I can see some cons for it. I'm sure you can too, but I'd like to work with you on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gendrich.
I just have a question. Am I reading this correctly? If you have a motorhome that is not licensed, people can live in it, parked on your driveway?
No, probably not. So
So
for it to be a manufactured home, state would require it has to be attached to a permanent foundation. And then for manufactured homes like you'd see out at Ripley's and stuff, there's what's called the HUD standards, that it's essentially the building code for manufactured homes that's set by HUD, and it would have to meet that and have that seal on it. So typically motorhomes aren't built to HUD standards, so you'd need some.
Okay.
So in that case, no, it would not.
I'm referring to this sentence. It also includes any such vehicle with motive power not registered as a motor vehicle.
Correct. So
So
that's
then
an
that spurred my interest in saying, somebody like Christmas Vacation, the guy pulls his motorhome up, he takes the license plate off it, and he's stuck in,
that's.
stuck with the in-laws for the rest of his life.
Right, so under our current definition, where we only define mobile home, that is included on that, but it doesn't become an issue because we define it that broadly, then say none of that's allowed anywhere except mobile home parks. So the state split the definition into 2, where one where that would still fall under the definition of mobile home, and we can treat it as is. The stuff that falls under their definition of manufactured home, then we have to treat like a stick-built home.
And then just my 2 cents, I think, you know, we should try to be as restrictive as possible so that these auxiliary living units don't turn into backyards crammed full of whatever. And so to allow things to go on that are out of and beyond what the state is recommending, I think is a mistake. So, thanks, Andrew.
Councilmember Lampy.
So, Andrew, you had 4 classifications up there on the different units. Substance rehab houses, I know there's some talk around the community about substance rehab houses. Does that fit anywhere in there, or is that excluded from there, or what's that?
That would, based on the legal advice we've gotten, that falls under the residential care facilities, so I can get you how they get there.
No, that's okay, as long as that's where they would fit, though, the rehab
That's where I'm
places
told
would
they
fit there?
It's,
Okay,
it'd be nice if that was more clearly stated, but that's.
okay. And then, Mayor, I know Homes for Iowa, where they bring in the completed home and stuff, and then they slide it off onto a foundation. Are those homes impacted by any of these changes?
No, so that would have, we never would have classified those as a manufacturer,
Okay.
or that's more of like a
I guess that's my
modular,
real question. They were not manufactured. They'd still be, quote, stick-built homes.
right, so they weren't built on a chassis or built under the HUD standards, so.
Okay. And then, so just making this all real simple for me, more or less what I'm hearing is that if I have a mobile home, I can put it anywhere in the city now?
Any place you can put a home, yeah.
On a foundation.
On a foundation?
Yeah, on a foundation,
Matching
you need
foundation.
setbacks, but that's
Yeah.
what it's.
Okay, yeah. We all shake our head and go, what, yeah? So is there any mandatory timeline that we have to have these changes in? You talked about, hey, I've got to do code changes. I know you said because they overrule our codes, they're already being, quote, enforced or not
But
enforced?
there's no mandatory timeline, so like with ADU specifically, they said as of July 1st, so that's how we have to treat it, but it's,
So we don't have to have our code rewritten to match theirs on any specific timeline?
No.
It's already in effect as we speak?
correct, it's just good practice to have city code actually be enforceable.
Yeah. Okay. Nope, that's all I got, sir. Thank you.
Mayor, maybe on a lot of these, as we've redone code before, you just reference the state code number, so it stays with it, so it stays strict to the Iowa code. And so, as he was talking about getting people involved, before we talk about parking and know what we can and can't enforce, whether it's 2 or 3 bedroom or 4 bedroom, I think giving you the opportunity to come to the table and saying, here's what the state says we have to do and what we cannot do, then everybody will know which direction to go with the protected homes and the ADUs and the parking, rather than trying to figure out what we want to lay down before we know what it has to be. So I would suggest we bring that forward of what we have to do to follow state code to keep it the most restrictive that we can, to see what we can and can't enforce before we have a big group think on the wishful thinking.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, I think that's a good point. I think where we have a lot of freedom to operate is on all these is we could be looser than the state's requiring is that, but they've locked it down pretty tight in terms of how restrictive we can be. There might be a few places, but you look at some of the specifics is they really didn't want cities working around some of these restrictions, and they've taken it quite far on some of those provisions, but
Councilmember Connor, then Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, and I believe an ADU can be prohibited or limited only to the extent that a state historical building code restriction, a deed restriction, or a rule of common interest community limits or prohibits the construction or use of an ADU. So under common interest community, which is an HOA, and we can have HOAs within the city limits,
correct. I mean, so that's deed restrictions and covenants, so if your neighborhood had those would still stand. That's some of that in the group homes, that's not true, but I think the city does not require or enforce those because those are private contracts, but they're just saying in this case, that's not being abridged.
Councilmember Gordon?
I mean, this came about pretty fast. I mean,
The 80, yeah.
the whole change. do we foresee that the next legislative session will see some more adjustments to this? Because we're going to become compliant, and then it's going to adjust next year. I mean, Matt, have you heard anything?
I've not heard anything on AUDs. I think they're done talking about it, from what I gather, but it wouldn't surprise me if we have those that try and overreach, that they come back and correct
It
those
just seemed the
actions.
compliance is pretty quick for this
Correct.
one. I mean, I
think this one, a lot of us didn't, this one kind of came out of nowhere, so to speak. I think there could be adjustments, but I probably wouldn't actually expected this legislature, just by people knowing about it and just the amount of time it takes to turn around and build one of these and then issues to result. It may take a couple of years before that rises back up to legislative action, whichever way they may go on it.
Okay.
We've had a couple people inquire about this locally that, you know, they've heard about it, so, but it's a slower burn probably.
thank you.
So, let me get to, so does City Council desire to consider any potential additional changes to single-family residential zoning beyond the necessitating by changes to state code?
Not that I know of.
Okay. We're good. Thank you, Andrew. All right, and next we have a presentation on proposed parking changes. Councilmember Osborne. Have you approached the podium, sir? And Sandra will do the 15 minutes also.
Do we want to get a consensus to update?
There was nobody that wanted to change anything. So we're good with Andrew's direction. Yep.
Hi, my name is Jeff Osborne. I'd like, Second Ward Council Representative. First of all, I'd like to thank the community that's kind of rallied around this since we started talking about it last summer. I'd like to thank the business owners that have shown up and had their voices heard. I'd like to thank particularly Muscatine downtown investors for sharing with their constituents what I've sent out to about 55 business owners downtown. Phone numbers, emails, and all that stuff is what I've reached out to, and I don't know how many that they have sent out. Also, the chamber assisted as well, and there's been a lot of, I've had probably 5 or so business owners approach me that weren't on my list. You know, they're fairly new or what, you know, the sources I had, I didn't see them. You know, they've been upstairs and on the second level, and so there's a lot of businesses happening downtown. That was very nice. I had about 20%, 20 to 25% respondents. For those that doing the math, that comes out to about a dozen or more so far. What this is today is not a vote. It is direction for discussion, direction so that we can move forward with 3 public hearings, get more input, and make a vote on it ultimately. But tonight we would decide whether we want to start that process. So, first slide, I'll have 3 slides to present besides this one. It'll be quick. It'll be done very quickly. Then there'll be questions, but I'll share a little bit of background. I've got 2 proposals to consider. Very quick, yes or no, is this better or not? And if it's better, we'll move forward with staff doing some work to do, and then go into the public hearings to get more feedback and all of that. So there are probably going to be a lot of questions that we need public input for. So we'll get this started. And as always, when we get to the proposals, they're tight, concise, but hold a lot of information. And if there's anything that council, as always, would like to amend and make a proposal, feel free to do so. I'll go back as far as just June of 2024. At that point in time in the summer, I reviewed our current parking strategy, discussed the importance of turns, and reviewed some tools and options at that point in time. Since then, we've had a couple of runs at implementing some of those things on the list or not on the list. In November, we raised the 2-hour meters by 75 cents an hour, raised 10-hour meters by 40 cents an hour, and the pay-by-app software had a soft start at that point in time. We started putting the stickers on the meters, and we verbally started telling people about it. People were asking questions. You'll see in the May timing, in the August timing, the actual pay-by-app was officially rolled out with videos and training and everything. Going back to May, there was an item on the agenda. There was a few items on the agenda to talk about parking meters and various codes proposals, or fines, like doubling the fines from $5 to $10 and stuff like that. I did a social media survey at that point in time. I had 132 respondents that favor increasing fines if it means removing the meters, and 81% respondents were against raising the fines if keeping the meters, and that was kind of the primary discussion. At that point in time, there was no changes made to the system, where nothing was approved at that time to change. We kept the fines the same, and I believe also somewhere in there we had the change for the least prices, where we made them all the same. Then, of course, in August, we did the pay-by-app was officially rolled out, even though that had really been in place and fairly active since November of 2024. All right, so the top view is as it is today. The bottom one is proposal number 1. Again, this is 2 slides away from being done. This is a yes or no, which is better. Currently, we have in red all of the parking meters, and in yellow we have no parking meters. Everything is 2 hours per either block or spot, depending on where your meter or Second Street. The proposal is, well, first of all, if you remember the conversation around turns, I shared an email of one of our business owners who did some math around what turns means to retail, and they had a dollar figure per parking spot that came out to about a few $1,000s a month per parking spot, if every one of those, and that's just one customer from a spot and the turns that would create. And that's worked really well on Second Street. The history would tell us about 20 years ago it had been 3 hours on Second Street, 2 hours everywhere else. It was one parking spot per day, and over a 10-year period after removing the meters at 3 hours per spot, they had mustered 5 retail locations, and most of Second Street was empty. We had New York Dollar Store, we had the Flower Gallery there on the corner. Most of the retail was in Pearl Plaza at that time, which had just opened up. They have the big parking lot across the street, and Pine Street is free and open. So over a 10-year period, they had 5 retail. Over the last 7 to 8 years, since the change to Second Street going to 2 hours, we've got about 20 retail. And in that, I'm including the take and bakes, the quick in and outs, coffee shops, those types of businesses that are not restaurants. That's a different classification. Offices like lawyers and such require longer stays. Salons require longer stays, but you get the flavor of what I would call the quicker in and outs. We've got about 20 of those on Second Street. Now, a lot of folks could say that a lot of things have happened over the last 8 years. Maybe the economy's been great and we've had a lot of businesses grow because of that. I would agree with that. However, all of those 20 are on Second Street. They're not on all the rest of the streets in the map here that we're talking about today. They happen to all locate on Second Street for a reason, in my opinion. There are about 10 to 12 vacant spaces or places that have typically high turns in the metered areas right now today that have been habitually vacant for a long time, just like Second Street was 7 or 8 years ago. So that's about all I've got to say about this proposal. If there's any questions, I could take questions if we want to just say.
So if I may ask, so just to be clear, so this proposal number one is
number
no meters and 2-hour parking throughout?
Take what we know works on Second Street and roll it out to all of the streets that are shown in yellow.
So that's proposal one with both of those things?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
We
Okay.
would keep the parking attendants, is what I would call them, instead of meter readers. They would still walk in this proposal from, like they currently do, mark the locations, monitor the turns, and write tickets if, encourage that shared parking.
And the second proposal is coming up on the next slide, correct?
yep,
Do you
we'll talk
do you think
that in a
it's
minute.
probably, should we go to the second proposal right away, just to talk about that and come back and then ask for if there's any objections?
I think we should just say yes or no on this one right now, unless there's more questions.
Council, is there any questions?
I have some comments.
Yes.
All right. So I'm anti, Jeff knows my stance here, but just want to say a few things. First, the downtown is a residential area. It's residential and commercial. So that's a challenge, and it's a challenge that's been there since the beginning of the downtown. Metered parking has given us benefits. It lets us control abuse of parking in areas, right, by us metering. It promotes more turns, okay? And the fees pay for staff and the monitoring. That's sort of been traditionally the thought, I think. So if you take away the fees, and we'll talk about that in a second, we'll move to monitoring and limiting parking guidelines, our staffing costs are still there. They don't go away, okay? It helps promote compliance when we have staff walking around monitoring. In theory, it should keep the traffic moving because we have staff walking there. But if we look at our money from 2024-25, there's two areas of revenue. One was the fees, and one was the fines that sort of make up what help pay for staff. We have lease parking, I pulled that out. So in that time frame, about $81,363 made up of fees. So 60% of what we collected. The other $56,000 were fines, okay? And that number's gone down, I think, a little over the years. But so we have a 60-40 balance of fees versus fines. We take the fees out because we're not going to collect fees anymore. We only have 40% of that left now to pay for staffing. And the staffing is a little more than $56,000, and then the money that we get for leasing and bags. So I think fiscally, it's not there to do this at this time. I know that we're going to have some concerns with meters as they age out and stuff like that, but I think this fee versus fines is dramatic. And if we choose to increase the fines dramatically, we sort of tossed that idea for a while. We haven't raised them in many, many years. But for us to take it from 5 to 10, or if we're going to have a waived, if you're, for the first time you get caught and you don't get a fee or fine, and then it goes up the second time and the third time, I think that's going to be very unpopular for as aggressive as we'll have to make the fines to make up for the loss of revenue. So I'm really concerned with that. Also, I drove through downtown again at noon today. I drive through frequently. There was 22 open free spots from the library down to Pine Street. I went back twice and collected. They went from 22 to 24. I'll give you 22. I just have a tough time. I don't think at this point in time we can manage it fiscally by taking the fees out of the mix and putting everything on the fines. I appreciate your social media. Great. 2% of the households, 1% made a comment. We have 9,000 households. It was a good, but that wouldn't be a great survey results, but it was a good one. You got a lot of feedback. One other thing I want to ask, because this is not a vote tonight, it's a consensus to move forward, to let the staff work on this. But I think seriously, one of the things we need to ask you, Jeff, is I'm asking you to recuse yourself from the consensus vote because you do have skin in the game on 2nd Street. So just my thought, it's a potential conflict of interest. But I'm really, and I've talked to my friends who have businesses and told them my stance, and I'm just one of many. So that's my concern and why I'm not really fond of this. But that's, again, my opinion.
Council, any other feedback? Councilmember Conard?
Two things. One and two. I mean, I would like to see all the proposals before I say yes to what's on the screen. So if there's a 3-hour proposal, which I thought there was going to be, I'd like to see that. And then the second thing I wanted to say before I forgot that.
I wrote mine down.
Yeah, that's what I need to do next time. As far as the management of the parking fees, staff and all that other activity, I would vote on this or give guidance on this without considering any of that. I think that should come from you, Mr. Martison, on if we direct in a way to go about removing the meters, then whatever we do with staff, or however that's handled, I think that's from the city administrator and staff to figure out and come with an approach of, if the city council tells us to move forward with, one of these proposals of no meters and 2-hour free parking, then I think it's you and staff that should come back to us and say, here's how we would handle this. And if that's keeping parking staff, then that's one. If it's not, I think that's something that I would hope that you could come back to us with that, with the direction that we're going to give here.
And that's what I would plan to do, based on your action.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Lampy? Councilmember Lampy?
Okay, I wasn't sure where
I'm
you're
just
going
ready
there
to
with
go
that
over
one.
here.
Sorry. Thought you were pointing at Nadine going, okay. But yeah, the one thing that when I chatted with you, Jeff, was to keep it simple, and that's where I think, coming out with, okay, we're going to do 2 hours and do it, across the board, make it nice and simple. Because one thing that I heard from my general discussions out there is like, well, I don't know if it's 2 hours here or 3 hours here, and if you try and make it 2 here and 3 here, and people just get confused. Not only the people that are visiting the businesses, but the businesses themselves weren't sure what the parking was outside their door. So it's like, I'm not sure what it is out there. So it got a little confusing for everybody. So keeping it simple, I think, is really good. I'm also with Matt that says, if the council says, hey, this is what we're going to do, I think there should be a financial analysis and staff analysis and everything else going, okay, if you guys want to do this, then here's kind of the ramifications and what I would do to it. So I think that's a good suggestion as well. So, but otherwise, yeah, keeping it simple, I like. And frankly, we just need to make a decision to move forward. So, yeah, on we go.
Councilmember Brocker and then Councilmember Gendrich.
Yeah. This has been a subject that's been kicked around ever since I was sitting back there in the cheap seats. And we still really haven't landed on anything. If we do anything, I would like to see a trial period first to see how it's actually going to work instead of yanking out meters or not, or doing whatnot, just to see how it's going to work. And as I mentioned in our conversations prior to this, there was a time, and I'm sure Nancy remembers too, where the meters were hooded over holiday shopping season to give folks a break, give the merchants a break, and I believe it may have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the Chambers sponsor that? Do you remember? I don't believe so. Okay. Anyway, it was called a parking holiday for your shopping holiday or something like that. Anyway, if we could do that this year to see how much actually putting those meters would actually would it actually work, or is it just, there's no parking meters on Iowa Avenue, let's just,
I like that idea.
do we go downtown, or do we just go somewhere else? So that might be a place to start, but I am an old person who likes dipping my toe in instead of sticking my whole foot in first.
Do we still have those hoods? Maybe not. We do? Okay, cool. Councilmember Gendrich.
I wrote my thoughts down, Matt. But I can't read my writing. No. It's not really a subject to joke about. I think a vibrant, healthy downtown is extremely important to a community. And I think it'd be nice to, I don't know, come to some solution, but I really appreciate the email we had a couple of weeks ago from our finance department, and I'm concerned about loss of revenue. And I'm concerned about what our attitude is going to be as a council and finance director and city administrator and that kind of thing about loss of revenue when we're already hearing that we don't have any money. And how are we ever going to get things balanced, and so forth. So I know I know what my disposition is, and I go back and forth. I hate to waffle on issues. I don't usually waffle on issues. I would say that I'd like to, get something squared away, as Nadine says, we've probably been talking about this for a long time. But for me to sit here tonight without having not had the opportunity to digest what other council members have said and what is going to be said and so forth too, it's a big deal for me, loss of revenue. And I think, we could be talking over $100,000 worth of lost revenue. I mean, am I off base with that? I just kind of, and we were like $400,000 short of balancing the budget last year. So, how are we going to come up with that? What's the strategy from our city administrator and finance director? How are we going to make up that $100,000, So I mentioned the word waffling. I don't know that, I think I know what proposal number 2 is going to say, but, should I make a decision on that tonight, other than just to say I'm in favor of continuing the discussion? Probably, unless I hear something here yet tonight that tells me, not to consensus with continuing conversation, but loss of revenue. So,
Councilmember Osborne, what I'm kind of hearing is, do you mind sharing proposal number 2 just so they have kind of the overall thought process to make a...
Yeah. So first
Mayor.
I'd
Yes.
like to, go ahead.
Real
Chief.
quick, Councilmember Osborne, I just want to catch a few things because I was here when we talked about this last time. And we have had these conversations, especially with Nancy, and there is some concerns with revenue loss, right, and employment. But I will tell you, our goal here is compliance. So if you're banking on revenue being there with a raise of citations, you should not bank on that because our goal is compliance. So if revenue is a concern, don't bank on that. However, if you're asking for council, like we did with pit bulls, to remove a city ordinance for a period of time, that order takes a stay, which is granted by the courts or by you as council. So before you give your decision tonight on how you want staff to work on it, I ask it to be on 2 parts. One, if you want to grant a stay over the holiday season, because that's what's being talked about tonight. And then 2, if you want us to change something, knowing there is going to be a revenue issue, how do you want that to look, or are you just going to null and be done tonight? So before we hear this second proposal, think about those 2 things too, because we have been talking about this for years, and I agree, it's time to probably put this to rest.
Chief, what was the second one?
The stay action?
No, that was number 1.
As you hear the second proposal, just be sure to understand that the free piece, as Councilmember Gendrich brought up, does raise a revenue concern, as I spoke with Nancy last year about this, or over a year ago, and just understanding that if we're making determinations based on enforcement, that our goal is compliance. And if we gain compliance, our revenue will be zero for that. So understand that when we're talking about this as we move forward.
Okay.
Just real quick, again, this asks for discussion to continue, and that's all we're deciding tonight. Presumably, if we decide to move forward with this direction and the next, or this one without the next, or however that works out, it's direction for staff to come back with a proposal that's similar to this. Now, I'm not proposing that we back off of our current standard is this system pays for itself. So right now it pays for itself currently, as Peggy brought up, through fees, through the meters, and through fines. Presumably the quick answer might be we raise fines. If I do the math based on what the budget currently says, using the numbers that Peggy used, it would be $15 per ticket, assuming the tickets stay the same. We always have to make assumption when it comes to budgets like that, you know, same numbers last year, that kind of stuff. But that would, the principle would be it pays for itself. It's not coming out of other funds or anything else. The wages have to pay for itself out of the work that's done. It's a use-you-go type plan. My apologies, I failed to mention that the 2 versus 3, Don bailed me out on that one, but it's based on feedback. We strongly got a lot of feedback. Make it 2, make it 3, but make it simple.
Yeah.
And as was said, if we know that 2 works, 3's got some question marks, a lot of question marks, and we don't know what that looks like yet. We'd probably want to do some study. So if you pick one or the other, you know, 2 is what it is. It's not really a change. We could always go increase it to 3, but it's probably hard to pull it back to 2. So that's why I went forward with simple and thing. So that's the budget answer is it pays for itself. Nothing will change about that. Staff will work some details on what that looks like, just like we do with the budget all the time. 2 versus 3. Conflict of interest. This is not a vote tonight, so that doesn't really apply. But just in a nutshell, when the vote does come, or if it does, this is no different than all of us vote for taxes. All of us vote for code that affects our houses. All of us vote for code that changes that affect permits. We recuse ourselves when it affects our address, our personal, and the word personal is in the code, that it has to affect us personally. We can vote on what happens on our street, on our block, in our community. We all do that all the time. I think it's a pretty weak link to assume conflict of interest. Particularly applies tonight for sure, because there is no vote. But between now and a vote, when a vote does happen, I'll talk to our lawyer about it. I'm sure we can all agree with whatever they say. Okay? But tonight, I intend to have my say. Let's move on to proposal 2. This again was modified a bit from what I've shared with everybody publicly based on the input that I've gotten from everyone. There was a very strong desire across the board not to have the parking attendants active on Saturday. Originally I had shown that around, so that's probably the biggest change here. There was also a fairly strong contingency wanting to do something on Saturday. And so what I'm forwarding here is that we currently monitor today, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. That's monitored. Now, the code doesn't go away outside of these times for really anything except for the 2-hour enforcement on 2nd Street. That code is isolated to 8 to 5 currently, Monday through Friday. All I'm saying here is that we would extend whatever it is on Monday through Friday, from a code perspective, into Saturday and Sunday. But rather than having a parking attendants working there all the time, I think our business owners and everyone said we don't want that, but we do want to be able to call and have more than just the 24-hour code to enforce. And so that would be that we would take whatever language is that makes it possible to have the Monday through Friday citations written from 8 to 5 p.m., we would mirror that on Saturday and Sunday, and that's all this is. But it would be call-in, not attendance, so we wouldn't drive the labor costs up or anything like that.
Councilmember Gingrich?
Well, I don't argumentative, right? I'm trying to get this, we have talked individually and so forth, and businesses, Saturday's a big day.
It is.
Okay, so why are we balking at strict enforcement on a Saturday? Because, I mean, I've heard the comment that especially for a hair salon, 2 hours isn't enough. That's the only thing that I can remember about conversations where 2 hours isn't enough. All that stuff that goes on in a hair salon, I have no idea. Don't care to know. I just know that, 2 hours isn't enough. But can't that all be done Monday through Friday? That hair styling stuff? Can't we get more turns going? Can't we enforce that on Saturday? Get that 2-hour parking going and get the turns going on a Saturday? I'm curious as to why that has been swept under the rug, that Saturday enforcement stuff.
Personally, I'm with you on that. You asked a question, so I get an answer, right? Anyone else? Personally, I'm there with you on that. That would be my preference, is to do what I proposed. However, based on the feedback I got,
Okay.
is we want the code changed so that it can be enforced by a call, not by the attendance.
Okay.
So I've made an adjustment based on feedback.
All right.
Same as the other slide, where it's just a little different than, now we could add the attendance later, should we move forward with this. Maybe staff comes back and says we should do that. I don't know, but that's up to them to make this proposal. We're just looking for direction at this point.
Well, not within respect to make the proposal, I just want to be clear. Are we hearing 3 proposals? One proposal to leave it the same and add enforcement on weekends, another proposal for 2 hours, and another proposal for 3?
No, currently we have monitored today, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's not a proposal, that's what it is. This proposal is simply change the code so that we can enforce the 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday by call, by complaint, like we do grass and anything else.
So is this proposal number 2?
This is number 2.
So proposal number 1 is 2 hours.
And
Well, it's already 2 hours. It's
Free.
remove the meters and
Is 2
enforce like Second Street.
So to be clear, there is no 3-hour proposal.
No, not right now.
That's what I was getting confused on.
Okay, I was confused.
That's where the confusion sets, is your proposal number 1 is free meters.
and 2 hours
and
throughout.
Parking.
Yeah.
And then another proposal to make this all happen is enforcement on the
Yeah.
weekends.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we'll have, if this goes forward, we'll have 3 hearings where we'll all get input, like we always do. And we can make adjustments along the way, right? But this gets us to the point where we put pen to paper on a code proposal change, just like Andrew's gonna do at some point in time with the state of Iowa changes for single-family homes. We're gonna see a lot of this stuff worked out, like how do the attendants get paid? Maybe 3 hours bubbles back up again and it becomes the thing we all wanna do. I would like to see it the way I proposed it originally, but that's my personal opinion. I've made adjustments based on the feedback we've all gotten.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yeah, just one other topic I wanted to bring up that's an opportunity, whether we stay current or future, whatever, is more concise information so people understand the rules of engagement when they're parking downtown. somebody's been hanging up a street sign that says parking, 2 hours. And I think we have something on some of the signs. It's not clear, it's not easy to understand, but I would love to see us take this opportunity to make, it's improved education of the signage. Okay? I think we can sort of all maybe agree on that, but that's separate. That is however we set it, but you need to understand, because do people know that if they live outside this county, they don't get fined? We don't enforce that. That's a little Easter egg. But I think that, I just wanted to point that out. I think that's a future state thing. I think we have an opportunity there, whether we're making changes, which I still don't agree with, or just cleaning up improved communication, and not totally always QR codes, please.
That we agree. That's another reason why I backed off the 3 hours. I couldn't come up with a real great way to make that very
You'd have to
clear.
have a sign this big.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about putting the little 3-hour placards on every meter post. Painting the stripes different colors came
Yeah,
up.
I think
You know,
there's
all kinds of
opportunity.
tools that could have been, but I don't want to, yeah, that'd be a long conversation. I agree. I think everybody would, that we got some improvement in those areas. We need to make it clear.
Because it's very confusing right now.
So proposal 2 is again, this is adding enforcement
Just take what we have on
Monday through
Monday through
Friday.
Friday, make it applicable to Saturday and Sunday, but don't spend the labor that we currently do on it.
Which is basically 2 hours still.
Yes, 2 hours.
Just extending it from Monday through Friday into the weekend.
Yep,
7
per
days
block.
a week.
7 days a week.
Whatever, currently what we're doing on Second Street, spread that over all the metered spaces is proposal number 1 in a nutshell.
And 8 to 5 or?
8 to 5.
Okay, okay.
There
Is-
was mixed results on whether we wanted to shift it 2 hours, like I had talked at one time. There's mixed results on whether we want to do it on Saturday or not, so.
I just want to make sure I ask the
Come up
question
through
good.
those conversations that that I would like to have with us with the 3 hearings. I'd like to see a proposal. I'd like to see 3 hearings to make adjustments to that proposal or vote it down, just like we do with anything else.
Chief?
So since I'm gonna be the one that I'm sure will be assigned to work on this, bless your heart, I just wanna be clear.
that way.
And I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I think for council to fully understand it, and stop me if I'm not being correct, but you have proposal number 1, which really should be leave it alone and add enforcement on Saturdays. And you have proposal number 2, which is do 2-hour free parking downtown and still add enforcement on the weekends. The enforcement on the weekends isn't a proposal, rather it's an addition to what we're either currently doing or what we'll do in the future, correct? I think there's some
Also
issues.
free
Just a little
parking.
different. The attendants would not be working on Saturday and Sunday. They would stay to Monday and Friday.
Okay.
Grass is a good example. We only enforce that through a call, right?
Sure, I'm with you.
So the code would have to be changed because right now it only gives us 2 hours, the 2 hour, or the 24-hour limit, which really takes 3 days to enforce. What's the point? It never helps us on Saturday.
Agreed.
We've had those conversations. So whatever we're doing on Monday through Friday, make that code for Saturday and Sunday. Now, if that means enforce it, yeah. But we're gonna enforce it through call, not through attendance. That was strongly not liked very much, but we did want the code change.
I understand now. Do you guys, are we, okay.
I think so.
Yeah, proposal 1 is basically getting rid of the meters and the application and go 2-hour free parking throughout downtown.
Yep, just like Second Street.
Yes.
Proposal number 2.
Proposal number
Yeah.
2 is
One-
basically
one
to
is-
take,
You did have them backwards.
Okay.
One is the 2 hours across, Second Street everywhere.
Perfect. Okay,
And 2 is
leave it alone.
Saturday, Sunday.
basically, yeah, proposal 2 is going, instead of just Friday, or Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, it'd be Monday through Sunday from 8 to 5.
Yeah, whatever it says.
But on the
currently.
weekend, if you get a call from a business owner and
But it's paid parking, we don't touch the meter.
Code doesn't say that we have to enforce it with attendants, by the way, or meter readers. It just says.
no
this-
paid parking.
So just take the code for Monday through Friday and apply it to Saturday
You're
and
not
Sunday.
giving council the opportunity to make a consent, to leave it alone or make a change.
I'll be asking those questions, yeah, you bet. But I think,
Concern is 3.
is there anything else you'd like to share, council member?
No?
Okay, so I think the first question, which and City Administrator, please correct me if I'm in the wrong order, but Councilmember Brocker, you brought up a good point. I think there's merit to looking at, this holiday season. This could be, if we so choose to move forward overall, but I think this would be great to, would there be any objection with council to at least to entertain the idea, again, getting input from our city administrator and the chief regarding having a stay for the holiday season? Is that right, chief?
Yeah, correct. And we could seek legal on that, but I believe we can do a stay for that. I was just talking to Cinda. We can
We've
bring
done it
that-
in the
No
past.
objection?
Yeah.
Any objection at all? Okay, so that's good. So that's step one.
Timeframe?
When is
The holiday open house is like the second week in November?
Is that like the
Yeah,
13th?
second
Biggest
Sunday in
shopping day of the
November.
year, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, you gotta have free parking.
Second,
It is.
so the open house would cover that. Open house would cover, and typically the business owners will do Sundays from then on until Christmas Eve.
But the exact Sunday date is what, Jeff?
What's that?
What's the exact Sunday date? Is that
14th.
Second Sunday in November.
Started on Friday after Thanksgiving.
The race is on.
Do that, what's the difference?
Well, no, if
You'll
you
get
haven't
there
started
faster.
Christmas shopping by
It's
then.
on the 9th.
9th,
What's the date?
November 9th.
Through
Yes.
And give me
December
an end date.
24th.
End date is typically, they'll stay open every Sunday up until December 28th. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, many will still be open on both those days, so at least till,
January 2nd.
January 2nd is what I told.
we could go to December 31st. There's a lot of returns and stuff that happens shortly after.
January 2nd?
And family members are in
That sounds
town right up
perfect.
to, up
January
to
2nd.
New Year's Day.
I'm good on it.
So then the next one will go as to council members' proposal one. We'll ask that question first, then we'll go to, I guess, the opposite one, if you will. So proposal number one would be to basically get rid of the coin meters and the application, and to have 2-hour parking, not just downtown, but where all the meters are currently. Is there any objection to that?
Yes.
So one objection. Okay, so then, do I need to ask the other one then? Probably no need to ask the other one. Yes,
Your
Councilmember.
Honor, would it not be better for us to put this in the hands of our staff and see what they come up with? Because as
I think we need to give them direction.
Councilmember Gendrich pointed out, we need to avoid losing any more revenue than what we have to.
I think this is where we need to give direction on doing that, and then the city administrator and the staff will look into it just to,
Okay.
yeah.
My question would be
Don't
is,
want to rule out anything.
Right. So,
hold on just a second. My question would be though, I presented a lot of this almost a year and a half ago. The feedback I got from 3 different administrators, or at least 2, was not enough direction. And so, we've had these dates that I shared, these struggles that were, I think you said this, I think you said that. So, since this will probably go to you, do you feel like you got enough direction based on what we said just now?
Right now I don't, because the mayor asked if
so right now there's only
there's
one,
any objection. There was 1 objection and 3 people shaking their head yes. So you have 4 objections, which means we would do nothing.
all right, so let's redo that then, because I did not hear anything. So verbally, is there any objection to getting rid of the meters and the application and keeping everything at 2 hours?
Well, is there any objection to allowing staff to work on this? That's what this is, the consensus to allow staff.
We understand that. This
Okay,
is
well, I
just- this is just to get to, so then the staff can handle that.
Right, so this is consensus to authorize staff to work on it.
Yeah, because this is not,
Yes.
this is not a vote, this is just
Correct.
for the staff to work on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Is there any objection? I'll repeat it. Is there any objection to direct, we'll just do it this way, to direct staff to look into if we did not have meters or utilize applications and everything would be 2 hours? Is there any objection to that?
Yeah, I don't want to allow staff.
Free parking.
I
Is
don't want
that
to
an
authorize staff.
objection?
That's an objection, I don't want
Is
to
there
allow
any,
staff.
is there any other objections?
I don't want to
Yeah.
invest the time.
I-
Is there, yes
It's
or
hard for
no?
me to say either way, consensus either way. I just think I need to have more discussion and get more input and stuff like that. So, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not
So then, city
comprehending.
administrator, kind of just hearing it, it's kind of a toss-up right now. Do you think it'd be beneficial just to potentially start looking into this and then coming back to council with a,
We've already had conversations, we started those conversations already, what this would look like. I think it would be relatively simplistic approach if we dove into both of these and looked at it from a cost analysis perspective. There is, the thing I'm gonna struggle with is the citations and the compliance issue, which Chief Keys and I have talked about many times, is the objective is to get the turns and to correct the actions of those. Over time, that will go down. I mean, over history it will. The first, I guess if you will, the first life of this new change will relatively still have some of these frequent flyers, but I can honestly tell you that if the goal is if we're gonna take away the meter funding, we're gonna have to somewhat offset that with the fine funding. Those fines won't, I know Mr. Osborne has done, some preliminaries, but over time that will go down, so that number will have to be above what we forecast for, and that might be a moving target. But this is where the old cop comes in me and says, we're really wanting to enforce the behavior is there should be a first, a second, and a third type offense, and then it won't be very popular, but on the third time, if you violate it, then we should probably have the vehicle towed, because obviously they're not learning from the first two. That's an aggressive approach, and that will probably cause a lot of headaches at City Hall. But we're trying to force compliance and turns, and that's how I see it working. The fine has to be something relative and sufficient to change somebody's behavior. But at the same time, in this process, it will also have to be somewhat relatively to keep the program going. I'm going off memory here. Roughly, if we did nothing for the first 7 to 10 months, we'd have enough money to pay our parking attendants to do that, but with no revenue, that's about how long it would last. So there has to be there should be some kind of revenue stream to help pay for that.
I think with having 6 council members here, missing 1, if we just had staff look into that component right now, just because you have 3 that are potentially object and 3 that are potentially for, without totally losing this idea, I think it'd be probably the best thing just to move forward with looking into it a little bit more.
I think that's doable.
If staff feels like that's okay, look into the financials, things like that, before we get to proposal 2. Are you guys okay with that? Okay.
I think that's doable.
Okay. Proposal 2 is currently, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, currently we're enforcing from 8 to 5 2-hour segments on 2nd Street. This would be to extend it from Monday to Sunday, 8 to 5. Still the traditional way that we've been doing it with the parking attendants every 2 hours, and this would be if it goes throughout town or throughout the downtown. But then on the weekends, this would strictly be by a phone call only. So if Mr. Nelson were to call, hey, Chief Keys has been parking here from 8 o'clock till 10:01, that it would be enforced at that point on Saturday. That was the proposal.
Yep.
Is there any objections with basically extending that to the weekends?
I don't like it.
Nope.
Well,
So 2 objections?
we still haven't respectfully.
Yep.
We don't have an option that says we need to maintain a parking program that generates revenue, because it might not. We're going to have a revenue reduction. Is that right? With either one of these? Will there be a revenue reduction?
I got a comment.
Especially if you come to compliance on all these.
City
ways?
Finance Director.
No, we
said-
won't. No, that's not a given. I know we've talked about a lot as a possibility, but I agree with Matt. Tickets will probably stay the same. They might even go up a little bit, who knows? Because we're gonna start enforcing a little bit more on Saturdays and Sundays. That said, ticket prices, the fine itself would go up to offset the meters. And over a longer period of time, the goal is turns, which create greater revenues through sales taxes and property values and whatnot. So again, the budget's always got a balance. If you're saying there's gonna be a deficit, you're saying it won't balance. Well, we're not gonna have that happen. It's gonna balance, and the system will pay for itself, either through higher ticket prices and over a period of time through additional sales, because I believe Don said it very well, and a couple others as well. We want a strong, vibrant downtown. We need to pick a strategy that makes turns happen. Compliance and changing behaviors makes a strong and vibrant downtown. Allowing people to get 100 tickets a year at $5 a piece is not sharing parking. That person we don't necessarily want downtown. They're not sharing the parking. They don't get it. They're not going in and out of stores. They're just letting the car sit there all day long. We don't want that.
So Councilmember Osborne, so the time has gone
Yep.
significantly over. So is there any objections to the statement or the question that was asked? Is there any objections to extending from Monday through Sunday? Any
Yes.
objections by verbally saying something?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the objection. Okay,
So we're not enforcing on the weekend.
correct. Is that correct, City Administrator? So we would not look into it. There was four individuals.
That objected.
Yep.
That's the way I looked at it.
Okay, so the
We got-
only item we have direction is to look into it with staff and the finances for the proposal one.
Which would be the free 2-hour parking, if
And-
we can pay for it and sustain it,
That's correct.
versus keeping it how it is with the
That's
current
accurate.
revenue coming in.
That's correct, yes. Yep,
And in addition to the stay,
yes, yeah.
those two.
It's kind of a two-part, yep, you bet. All right, very good.
Clear as mud.
All right, and next, we have the best for last. Overview of budget basis financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025. The finance director will review the attached PowerPoint presentation on the budget basis financial statements for fiscal year ended in June 30th, 2025. Good evening,
Mayor.
Director.
Good evening, everyone. I was, the mayor stole my line there, save the best till last, so,
It's a given, it's a given.
okay. This is the budget basis presentation for the year. So we spent a lot of time developing the budget, and this is gonna be just an overview. The booklet I handed out tonight, I intended to hand it out last week, but I got distracted. But if there's any questions you have on that book, even after tonight, let me know. This is separate from the audit. The audit is, we're trying to expedite the audit this year due to the staff change, and that'll be a separate process coming up. And those of you on the audit committee, you'll be notified when we're ready for that. So tonight, and this is the same format as we've done the last several years. It'll be an overview of the general fund, revenues, expenditures, and ending balance for the year, general fund balance history, and then just a summary of the other funds of the city, primarily the enterprise funds, how they compared to the original budget. And then we'll mention this, Finance Department is supposed to report on the grants and donations and investments, at least annually to council. So it'll be the overview of the grants, interest earned, and some summary items, and then any council feedback. General fund, and this is just kind of an overview. The major revenue source of the general fund is property taxes. So 9.1 million to fund general fund services last fiscal year. Smaller amounts for utility, hotel motel tax, cable franchise, utility franchise, and then also licenses and permits, fines, intergovernmental, that's money from other governments. A lot of that is, some of it's from the state and other, like Fruitland contract, that type of thing. Charges for services, use of money and property, that's rents and interest, and other revenue. So the total revenue was 14.7 million in the general fund last fiscal year. Expenditures are shown by function, and it's further broken down by whether it's current expenditures and capital outlay by function. The largest function is public safety, police and fire department. Then we have the next one listed is public works, 2.5 million operating and another 930,000 in capital. A small amount for the health and social services, culture and recreation, that's library, art center, and the various park activities. Just over 4 million for operations and 318,000 for capital. Community and economic development, just over $1 million. A smaller amount for capital. General government, that is mayor and council, city administrator, legal services, finance, HR, general building and grounds. And a lot of that is insurance cost, about 3.46 million. And then a smaller amount, 47,000 for capital. So total expenditures of the general fund, just over 25 million. And then we have transfers from other funds. We're required to receive employee benefits tax levy in a separate special revenue fund and then transfer it to the general fund to fund employee benefits. That includes FICA, IPERS, police and fire pension contributions, health, life, and dental insurance. And then transfers from the road use tax fund the various activities in public works, roadway maintenance, snow and ice, street cleaning, traffic control, admin. And then smaller amounts, I guess, from the TIF funds. Ambulance fund transfers in to fund a portion of the fire department wage and benefit costs. So those transfers in total up 10.4 million. There's some transfers out to the equipment replacement, computer replacement funds, and as well as some subsidy transfers to the enterprise funds as needed. So that totals close to $1 million. Revenues and other sources were under expenditures by 319,000. We had a beginning balance of 5.8 million and an ending balance 5.5 before encumbrances, and the encumbrances are outstanding purchase orders at year end to get an unreserved fund balance of 5.522 at the end of the year. The next page is kind of an analysis of how we got to the ending balance, how we did with revenues compared to the budget estimate and expenditures also compared to the budget. When we did the original budget, we thought the ending fund balance would be 5.533 million. Last year when we did the revised estimate, we projected that it would decrease to 5,227,000. And the actual came out at 5.522, which was real close to the original projection. So it was actually over the revised estimate by 295,000. And we always look at the general fund balance as a percent of expenditures, and our minimum, and that is a minimum, is that 16.7%. But we like that to be closer between 20 and 25%. And last year, it ended up at right at 22%, which is a good number. Revised estimate, we had projected it would be 20.4%. So the next, the bottom of this page and the start of the next page goes through the significant revenue actual amounts compared to the revised estimate. And I'll just kind of skim over that. Tax collections were actually over by about 15,000. Utility franchise fees were over by 20. Cable was under. The road use tax transfer in was under by 202,000, but that means the expenditures were also that far under budget. A significant part of that is we had a mild winter, so snow and ice budget came in under. That doesn't happen every year, but that did impact it. Employee benefits slightly under. I'll start skipping here. Hotel motel tax. It was under our revised estimate by about 32,000, but it's still a strong amount, 563,000 in hotel motel taxes. Community development revenues came in 23,000 over. Some of that construction permits were actually under budget by 65,000. Rental inspection fees were over, and then we started crediting the sale of property that actually the planner works on, so it is appropriate that those funds help fund that position's wage and benefit costs. I should skip over library. It looks like it's under, it was a budget error. Art Center slightly under. Parks and Rec in total over by 18,000. Cemetery was under. Public Works revenues was under. Police grants actually came out over budget. Court fines was over. The ATEs was over, and other police revenues came in over. Smaller amounts, licenses and permits were over 6,300. Fire department revenues over about 7,000. Interest was strong last fiscal year, and that likely will be changing going forward because they've been lowering interest rates. But it did come in over by 47,000. Some of the state money came in over. And then the second to the last line under revenues, with how things came out, we had budgeted about 350,000 from our set aside from the state COVID relief funds to balance both the FY25 with the balance used or budgeted to be used in FY26. With how things came out last year, we didn't need to transfer that 350 in, so that'll stay in that reserve to be used to help balance future budgets. And until valuations and how that hits with the state restrictions on tax revenue growth, it's an unknown until you actually get that information each year.
Nancy,
Yes.
just on the revenues, where's the municipal golf course listed?
That's an enterprise fund.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's
We're on general fund revenues. Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you.
It was a good year for the golf course,
Yep.
though. Very good year for the golf course. And so the revenues and transfers in, it looks like it came in out over or under by 272,000. But a lot of that is because we didn't use that set-aside money. Expenditures, and this doesn't happen most years. Most areas by function came in probably significantly under budget. The general government was under by 163,000. Public safety actually was over the original revised estimate by 43,000. But we did amend the budget towards year end. There was some retirements that we had to fund. Art Center and Parks under in total by 80,000. Community and Economic Development under by 134,000. Public Works under by 212,000, but again, that resulted in the less road use tax being used. And then the airport subsidy was actually under by 19,000. So in total, revenues were under by 566,000. And that really is unusual for that many. I think departments did a good job at watching their budgets. But I don't know, you can't really count on maintenance cost either if those come up. So we did end the year with a good balance in the general fund. The 10-year history on this graph, or I left it at more than 10 years, but basically that fund balance was maintained for the year. So we did have balanced revenues and expenditures without using the one-time money last fiscal year. The next one is the percentage of the general fund balance to the expenditures, and that has been hovering, it's over the 20%, and it's been a few years where 24%, but that 22% still is a good percentage. And some of that calculation, though, is because if expenditures were under, that means that the percentage is higher than it would be if all the budgeted funds were expended. This next one, and this is hard to read, this has all the funds, specifically the enterprise funds. There is the original budget ending fund balance, the revised estimate that you did last spring, and how the actual came out, and then whether that balance is favorable or unfavorable. Most of the funds have balances higher than what we had projected. There's some exceptions to that. And I do have the footnotes. I won't go through all 25 or 26, 32, 31 footnotes. I could do that, but I won't. Some of it, though, this year, there was a new accounting standard on compensated absences payable at year end. And we had been booking some of that to each of the enterprise funds, and that was how we budgeted it. With the new standard, that amount would have increased significantly. And in most cases that, I think in very few departments do you actually hire people during other people's absences. The sick leave and vacation and type of thing. So we made the decision on a budget basis to exclude compensated absences altogether. And it makes sense on a budget basis, but on the city's audited statements, we do show according to the accounting standards. And I'm just going to pick out a few of these. The Water Pollution Control Fund actually was under our projection for the revised estimate by 63,000. There were some maintenance things that came up during the year. We did amend the budget in May to cover that. Collection and drainage was over by 301,000. The parking, actually, it shows that we're over our projection by 20,000, but that was primarily due to taking away the compensated absences payable. Without that, it would have been more in line with how we budgeted it. The transit shows that it's 460,000 less, but we have encumbrances out for buses, and we don't accrue the grant funds until we actually get the budget, get the buses. Golf course, that's our Shining Star Fund for this year. Fund balance ended up at 426,000, 148 higher than what we had projected. It was a good year, not that many rain days. You can't count on that every year. But I think things are going very well there, and the fund can support capital projects associated with the golf course. Equipment services, that's kind of our fund of concern going forward. It ended the year with a deficit of 134,000. And while we projected the deficit it would be 164, that still is a deficit. And we raised rates for FY '26, but we're a little behind where we thought we'd be going forward. And I know Matt has started to look at that operation, and actually, if you look at the footnotes, the billed hours from the mechanics were under our projection by 400 hours, which isn't sustainable. Again, that's one of the biggest challenges going forward. But overall, I think the next page, we've got special revenue funds. That second line, that emergency tax, emergency fund, that is the money that's going to carry forward till next year that we didn't need to use to get a balanced budget. Some of the other ones, local option and road use tax, that really depends on how much we need, where the capital projects are at the time the budget's done. And the various TIF funds, Clark House was higher by 297,000. Section 8 was higher by 95,000. But again, most of the funds are in a good position compared to where we thought they'd be. And then I do have information on just summary if revenues were higher and expenditures were lower, kind of thing on the footnotes. The other things I should have pointed out on footnote 13 and 14, the boat harbor and marina did have deficit balances like they do in many years, and we use general fund transfers to fund those deficits rather than accumulating them for future years. And I think most of the years we've done that, most of the recent years.
Yeah, just also calling out too, it looks like the landfill revenue's up and the expenditure's down, so I know we switched operations out there.
Yeah.
That must be proven to be working out pretty well.
Yeah, yep. So, yeah, and most of those funds, I think this is a good budget to retire with. Any other questions on the enterprise or other funds? In the book, there's individual sheets for each activity of the general fund. So like in the general government activity, you can see how much, like the legal services was under budget, how much in each individual I think activity is what we call them, you know. So it's, there is a lot of information, and it's just for your resources, for you to look at. But generally, other years, we haven't been under budget as significantly as we were this past year.
The equipment services line that you talked about, is that the billing of hours and stuff? Is that what you said?
It's an internal service fund.
Yep, so that's one
It's like
department billing the other department and stuff, that's what, okay.
Yeah, a city business that just does business with city departments.
Right, yep.
And so,
That's in my simple mind, that's the oil change charge and stuff like that we're charging the police department and stuff like that. That's in this line?
yes, all the vehicle maintenance is there, even
Yep.
Outside services. We
Yeah, I
track
saw it. Yeah, totally
everything
agree.
through that fund and then bill it out. Some of it, may be that our vehicles are newer recently, and there's less maintenance.
Yeah.
And we were able to replace, I think, most of the police vehicles before they,
COVID hurt us, we got back on track, and
Yeah.
so as we move forward in the year, we'll to keep that down.
well, and yeah, in the years we couldn't get, the COVID years where we couldn't find replacement vehicles, that resulted in increased costs.
Important to maintain the fleet. But no, by the numbers, it looks like great job to all the department heads and everybody involved this year, especially the budget we had, the challenges and the challenge we're facing in this budget coming up. But again, everything looks great to me, and now how is maintained by city staff. So thank you, Nancy.
Sure. Great job. Let's get back a few.
Councilmember Brockert?
Nancy, I'd like to thank you for all of your years serving as finance director here, and we wish you well when you hit the trail of tape to go out the door to enjoy retirement.
Thank you. And I think I'll enjoy my birthday more this year than
You
I
probably will.
did with
Yes.
having budget meetings.
You still have to
We'll
come
come
back.
over and sing to you.
Oh, I can still come back. I'll get back to you on that.
Come on.
Councilmember Osborne?
I just had one question about the numbers here, and thank you for your services, and well deserved, well deserved. On item 30, public housing expenditures were less than original and income was more than estimated. What drove those two?
Some of it is timing of, it's hard to know the maintenance costs and when you're gonna need them.
Yeah.
Especially at the Clark House, Sunset Park as well, but Clark House, you know.
I was kind of
it's-
hoping you might say the elevators, less maintenance today.
The elevators was funded from HUD capital funds and 300,000 of ARPA funds.
Yeah.
So that
Funded.
helped get the
But your
elevators.
costs were down for, like, I'm assuming maintaining it, I was hoping you might say, but I guess I'm more interested in, though, why is the revenues up? Did rents go up? Did we have less vacancy, more tenants, or?
That also includes some housing grants.
Okay.
Operating funds from HUD and capital funds. And this is due to the timing of our drawdowns from that.
Okay,
So it's, I don't think we're making money as such if you look at it overall, but we're able to fund expenditures from our available funds.
okay.
And the capital needs at Clark House especially are not insignificant going forward.
Right. Thank you.
Director Royal Goodwin, did you have anything to add? No? Okay.
Then the few last slides, and this is information that's in the book, but the grants in FY '24-25, 11.5 million in grants, which is a significant amount. Of that, 2.5 was donations for the sports dome. Last year, it was slightly under 10 million at 9.9, but that's still a lot of grant and donations, and there's no free money with grants. There's a lot of work that has to be done.
Is that, how much percent of that 11.5 million is from utilization of the grant writer?
That's not easy to determine.
Okay, I was just curious.
This is, it does impact it, because especially the lead reduction grant, that goes over several years, and I think that was the year we had a grant writer that was very successful in getting the grant. And the 6th and Mulberry project and the downtown facades. So those go back a few years, getting the grants awarded. But again, and Jody can tell that there's no free money. But again, that's a very good grant amount.
Yeah.
And then on interest, and the grants are on pages 123 to 125 in the book. And that does break it out by the type of grant and the donations. Investments on a cash basis, about $2,484,000. And then on an accrual basis, a little under 2.353, which is an 8.1% increase from last fiscal year. We started out the year, we had some investments at 5%. Most of this fiscal year, it was closer to 4%. And recently, in the last month, it's dipped under 4%. So that probably, hopefully it doesn't go back to when it was under 1%, because we were earning next to nothing on money for a while. And just kind of an overview, the debt changes during the year. We didn't issue GO bonds, but we had new state revolving fund loan funds for the West Hill project, 2.8 for phases 6A and B, and 4.6 for phase 6C. So the total debt issued was $7.4 million. And we do have an aggressive debt repayment schedule. The last year of those SRFs is in FY34 at the last year of our local option tax. Overall, $2,190,000 of bonds were paid and retired, and that was the GO bonds. 822 of the old SRF loan were retired, and we made the first payment on the 6A and 6B loan of $731,000. So the total debt retired was $3.7 million. Debt outstanding at June 30th, $32 million, $14,780 in GO bonds, 6.1 in GO SRF debt for phases 6A and B, 4.6 for phase 6C, and $6.5 million for the 2008 water pollution control project. Interest paid during the year totaled $912,000. But just in summary, the ending balance was 22% for the general fund, higher than what we had projected. It more than meets our fund balance policy requirements. There are still concerns, like there is every budget year going forward. We were able to carry that $350,000 forward, but there's still going to be inflationary cost increases for goods and services, uncertainty in future property tax, ability to tax, and the state restrictions on the revenues. But having the strong general fund balance, that helps us position us in a good place to try to address those things. There's still a structural imbalance going forward. We had looked at the long-term plans last year at budget, and those will be updated for this year. But until we get the actual valuations and the state limitations, it's hard to project just what those challenges are.
I was going to say, especially with getting a letter in the mail regarding commercial property, 12% increase in assessments. It's like, yikes. I mean, good for municipalities, but
And
kind of crazy thinking about that.
Yeah.
And some of those things, commercial might go up, residential might go down.
Right.
It's hard to, and
It's a
it just
balance
shifts who pays the taxes.
Yep.
But it's still, the services that the city provides are still important to the community.
That's correct.
The police, the fire, the parks, community and economic development. So those are good services that the city does provide to the community. Again, the positive balances in all the funds except for the equipment services. And other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape going forward.
Go Nancy. Any questions for the Director Leak? Any questions?
I have a
Job.
question.
Yes.
My challenge to everybody is to keep a good balanced budget going forward.
Councilmember Gendrich?
You're exactly right.
There
Okay.
you go.
I'm curious as to what boards or commissions you're going to volunteer for.
My plans are first to chill for a couple months before I try to obligate my time to anything.
So you're not ruling it out?
That's what I heard.
I'm
I'm
impressed.
not agreeing yet, but.
That's great, Nancy.
There are a few that I might be interested in.
Really? Wow, way to go.
Doesn't have
I'll
to be
be
local.
calling you shortly then.
What?
I'll be calling you shortly then.
Uh-oh.
Any other questions for Nancy?
Nope.
Well done.
Job well done.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Gendrich, is there anything you'd like to share tonight?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Brockert.
No, nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilmember Conard.
Other than that, Your Honor.
Councilmember Gordon.
Great end to the cruise ship year.
Yeah. that's great.
13 successful cruise ships, a lot of great guests that love Muscatine.
And thank you for volunteering, by the way.
Yes, well done.
Very, yeah.
So
very
much fun.
Noticeable. Councilmember Gordon, or Osborne.
Nothing more today.
Councilmember Lampy.
I'm good, thank you, nothing.
Cinda.
Nothing tonight.
Chief.
Well, I do have something to say. I believe you complimented us on the budget, and I speak on behalf of Martison and Director Steinman. That Thursday staff meeting, Scotcheroos sound pretty good for a reward.
I'm coming up next.
Everybody's gonna want to be
Yeah.
our staff.
Who's invited to that? Are we invited to that, or
We'll
did
have
you?
to put a notice out.
City Administrator?
I have a couple things real quick. In addition to what you just heard tonight, I have been working on a budget emergency reduction strategy plan. That kind of changes a little bit with what you heard tonight. At the same time, I don't want to say this and jinx myself, but there's a lot of uncertainty on property tax reform and what that would look like. I had a conversation just last week with the House of Representatives that says there's probably more discontention right now in that bill than there was last year. So I don't know what we'll hear in the legislative session, but I will have that to you probably in a memo form at some point moving forward. There will be some things on there that, in the interest of time tonight, I didn't want to bore you with and keep you as long. I learned my lesson on one other form where we ran a lot longer, so I got to keep it short to the point. I will say, every department head since I have been here has been very cognizant of the budget, and it just shows with what you just heard from tonight, how they all came in a lot under budget. They were very cognizant of what they spent their money on. That wasn't just me, that was Nancy and the whole group of the leadership team really being cognizant of what's not only this year's budget, but what does next year look like. So my hat's off to those folks for taking it serious. And there was a lot of discussions on, should we do this? Should we hold off? And I'm not a micromanager. I'm like, you have to do what you have to do to keep your department afloat. But there was a conscious effort to keep that as low as they possibly could. So I can't thank them enough for that.
All I have to say is, Nancy, if you feel like making some more Scotcheroos, I love Scotcheroos so much. So you're awesome. Yes. Yes. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh,